Hi, thanks for joining me today. My name is Lindsay. I'm the designer behind Doing the Most Design, and you can find me on Ravelry at LindsayDTMD. I can't wait to show you what I've got in store for you for today's video. All right, I've already unwound some yarn from my ball here, and now I want to estimate how much of a tail that I want for a long tail cast on. If you need to substitute the cast on method for something else, I want to highly recommend that you do not use a stretchy cast on. When I was originally designing this hat, I wanted the brim to be as comfortable and accommodating and stretchy as possible. So I did start with a stretchy cast on method. I think it was the Italian tubular, and it just made the hat look very ugly, in my opinion. It looked like it was flared out at the brim, kind of similar to bucket hats from the 90s. So if that's your style, I'm sorry that I called your style ugly, but if that's not your style, then please, if you want to substitute for a different cast on method, besides the long tail cast on, please do not use one that is stretchy. That's just my best advice for you there. So the thing about the long tail cast on, again, if you're very, very new to knitting, is that what we're trying to do is estimate the distance of yarn that we will need so that when we cast on the first several loops or stitches onto our needle, we are making those with the tail. There's a different way of doing a long tail cast on that it doesn't involve this, but this is the way that I personally enjoy. So that's what I am going to do. So here, I want to start off with just sort of estimating about 6 to 8 inches, maybe a little bit longer than that. This is the amount of yarn that I want hanging off of my hat when I start making it. This is the yarn that I will later put a tapestry needle on and weave this end into the hat so that it looks tidy and finished when I'm done with it. So I'm getting myself kind of a generous amount because if I go too short, then even if I can get a tapestry needle on it, I can't move the needle back to the fabric to weave in the ends. So I want to give myself a little bit of room to play around with. So from this point, I'm going to hold this as sort of an informal marker. I'm going to start pretty low here on my knitting needle, and I'm going to gently do some loops and wraps. I am not counting this in my head. I am just doing this motion. I'm going to caution you against doing this too tightly. And as you can see here, if your lighting is really good on your screen, you can still make out the individual stitches. If I do these too tightly, they actually start to look like one individual coil or something like that. Like you can't see the individual coils in like this rope, for example. So I'm doing this very loosely. The reason for that is because, yes, although we are making stitches to this size of needle, which by the way, this is a US 2, which is I think is a 2.75 millimeter needle. The point is that it takes a little bit more than just a loop around to make a knit stitch. So I don't want to pull this too tightly. I want to be kind of forgiving with it. And now that I have several loops on here, I'm going to secure this yarn with my right hand. I'm going to take a second to count how many loops that I have. So I'm okay with that. I would prefer that I have about 40 to 50 stitches on here, but since I have exactly 40, I'm going to stop there. Now, I am making a size F for this hat, which is a 26-inch circumference hat. I'm making this hat in particular for my friend Adam, who has kind of a big noggin. So I'm making the largest size for him, and I hope he really appreciates it whenever I give it to him. But from here to here, I'm going to slip this distance off of my knitting needle, and now this is roughly 40 stitches. Then I am doubling up the yarn. So I still have the yarn here in my left hand. I'm doubling up the yarn and pulling it. So if that original spanse was a generous 40 stitches, then this point in my right hand now is a generous 80 stitches. Get some more yarn. This is 120 stitches, and then I'm going to give myself about another 1/2. And now this is my hopefully sweet spot. Now, the trick that I'm showing you for how to estimate these stitches, I'm going to level with you, like 80% of the time it works 100% of the time. So sometimes it's a little more and sometimes it's a little less. If it's a little less, I will recast on the stitches. If it's a little more, I just might cut the end of the tail by a couple of inches. Life's too short to be casting on over and over and over again. So if you prefer to, you can then put in a little slip knot here at the end. It's the most clumsy slip knot I've ever made, but okay, whatever. And then we're going to put that on our knitting needle. Make sure that we are not choking terribly hard onto that knitting needle. It needs to be a little bit loose. And then what we want to do is we want to set up our yarn in what is called the slingshot hand position for doing a cast on. So I just unwound a bunch of yarn from my ball here, so I have some leeway as I'm moving into my yarn. Ultimately, here's what we are trying to accomplish. I want to make new loops on my knitting needle with this yarn, which is the long tail. And then you see how this stitch has a necktie? Let me zoom in. You probably can't. Okay, so moving this way, you see how this stitch has a necktie? I want to make neckties for all of my stitches using the yarn that's now connected to my ball. Okay, so that is in short what we are trying to accomplish here. The way that we're going to do that is, as you can see from the slip knot right here, we have already a fork in the road. Okay, this yarn naturally splits itself into sort of this Y shape facing into that neck of that stitch. I want to make sure that my yarn that is free, my free end of my yarn, is on the top side. And then the bottom side is going to be my yarn that connects to my ball. And then I'm going to grip both of these strands of yarn with my ring finger and my pinky against my left hand palm. And I'm going to put my index finger and my thumb into that open space. I'm going to push my fingers apart like this. And now I've created tension. This is the slingshot. Okay, I hope this looks familiar to you in terms of like, yep, that is kind of what a slingshot looks like. But this is the slingshot method. So let me do that one more time. Here I'm starting out with my top strand is my free end. The bottom strand connects to my ball of yarn. I'm going to grab these two strands with my ring finger and pinky. I'm going to hold those to my palm in my left hand. And then with my index finger and my thumb, I'm going to put my thumb and finger between the strands, move my fingers outward, and then create tension by turning my left hand away from my body. So that is how I'm creating the slingshot. Now, in order to do the cast on, the next step that we need to do is to turn the left hand palm upward. My right hand knitting needle, I'm going to turn that towards my left palm. As you can see here, I've created a teardrop shape around my thumb with the strands. So my right hand needle comes up into that teardrop shape. I'm going to put my hand upright again. And then my knitting needle goes around from right to left and from top to underneath the strand of yarn that's going around my index finger. At this point, I'm going to bring my thumb over and then drop the loop from my thumb. I am still holding on to my palm with my ring finger and my pinky. And when I put my thumb back against this strand, I move my thumb back into the same slingshot position. And now I've reset to cast on the next stitch. So when you do it kind of slowly, you tend to lose some tension. So don't be afraid if you need to reset and reset. That's totally fine. It's all part of the learning process. And one thing that I want to keep in mind is I don't want to pull too tightly on this stitch as I'm forming it. So let me zoom in kind of closely here, and I want to show you two different things that are happening. So if my stitch is too loose, let's say that after I cast on this stitch, the top part of it is really open and loosey-goosey like this. What I want to do to tighten that up is to pull on the free end strand, which is my top level strand, remember, and that is going to close up the space around the needle. I don't want to go too tight with that. I still want a little bit of room in there. Now, let's say that the necktie on the stitch is too loose, which is the case right here as well. In order to tighten that up, I'm going to pull the yarn that's connected to my ball, like that. So again, I'm not tightening too much on either one of those elements, but here, this is a very comfortable, and as you can see, I can slide my loops very easily. Yes, it is an aluminum slash metallic needle, but trust me, if you know, you know, you are definitely capable of casting on loops that are too tight for you to move around freely like this, even though it is just 2 loops. And this is how we will do the long tail cast on. Okay, so I'm going to take a pause here and do the cast on for the rest of my stitches. Thanks for making it to the end of this video. If you have not done it yet, hit like and subscribe so you can be notified when I put out more content for you. I'd love for you to connect with me on Ravelry at LindsayDTMD. Check out my link tree for a collection of my projects. And if you're able to, leave a cash tip for me at my Ko-Fi page. All links are in the video description below. Don't forget to be kind to yourself as you learn, and thanks for spending your time with me. Bye!